Hello everybody, this is Gail, and I think, I said this to my patrons because I've just done a patron video for them. We made a tropical fish, and I told them I have got fish on the brain, and I still do. So I'm going to make another fish. This one won't be as complicated as the one that we did on the Patreon video. So what I'm trying to do now is get a white log of clay rolled out at a fairly even length. And I have some black clay. Actually, I've got two pieces of black clay. I've got one that's rolled out to a number 3, which I'm going to set aside. And this one is a number 1. And I don't think this is going, let me just see how much more, because I want to cover this whole thing, and I had this rolled out earlier. So let me turn the camera off while I roll this through the pasta machine a few more times so it'll stretch out. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry about that, but this should be long enough. Let me just trim up my sides a little bit. And let me get a longer blade, trim up a straight edge here. This is one that I saw from Monica, who is Mo Clay. She did this a while back, and I have communicated with her on several occasions asking her if I could use her hurricanes as a motivation for mine, and she was all for the idea. So hopefully she still doesn't mind, because this is sort of, I got the inspiration from her. I'm going to be adding my own twist to it. But let me just do this. Now I'm using Kato clay, so it might be a little stiffer than Primo, especially because it's old clay. I'm rolling it over to make the mark. You remember, it'll make a mark on your clay. And let me see, my camera has slipped, it looks like. It doesn't ever really want to stay where I put it. But anyway, I'm going to still use the long blade to cut. And this wasn't very straight, because this isn't very straight. So I am going to cut a straight line. I'm not going to try to. And it overlaps a little bit right here, but that's okay. I will just trim that part off. It really doesn't matter anyway. It's not going to hurt anything. It just might be a little bit more black in that one area. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this, reduce this as I'm rolling it. I start in the middle, and as I roll my hands, pull my hands out, and it helps to stretch the clay. Because I want to roll this down to it's about 1/4 of an inch. I may have to cut part of this off because it looks like I'm going to have more than enough. So let me cut this end off since I see it's got some white on it. Not that the white's going to make any difference. It just helped me make my decision as to what end I was going to cut off. And just try to get it all to the same diameter. This right here is my narrowest point, so I'm going to try to just get the rest to that same diameter. And again, this might be too much, but I'd rather have too much than not enough. Push that in a little bit. That got a little bit too skinny. And I don't know if you knew that. You can do that when you're rolling your clay while it's still warm. If you do it too much, you can push it back a little bit. Now what I want to do is cut this in 2-inch slices. Let me just trim a little bit of this end off. It was just going in a little bit. And let's see, I believe this is 2 inches. I'm just going to use this for a reference. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And hopefully I'll have enough. If not, I still have this other piece that I can reduce. But this should be enough. And 1, 2, 3, 4. With an inch left over. How was that? I need to cut these in half again to make 16 pieces. Now I'll go back to the 5. And I'll just take this. This is 4, and I'm putting those in the grooves. See in the groove there? Then here's 3. I'll put those 3 in those grooves. This is going to be a very simple fish. And you know me in black and white. I love black and white. And that one's a little bit fatter, so I'm going to keep this one for the top. But you see, there's I'm building like a pyramid. And I'll put this one on the top, which makes the pyramid. And actually I need to roll out some more clay. I just realized. Let me just kind of push that together. I need some, here's some white. That's already conditioned. Let me roll this out flat. I forgot I needed to do some black and white stripes. I'll be right back. Okay, so here is my black and my white. I should have cleaned up my workspace before I came back. Let's see, I'll just wipe it with a paper towel for right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack these. These are about 4 inches long and a little over an inch wide. And you can see the one isn't quite as long as the other, so that's no problem. I'll just pull that off. Or cut that off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these in half. And stack. And cut in half and stack. And I don't know that I've got enough to do it one more time. So let me compress these a little bit. And I'm going to try to cut these in half and stack again. So we'll have this. We'll have this kind of a cane, if you want to call it that. This one is a little messed up. I won't worry about it. So anyway, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to compress this way and make this cane longer with the stripes going this way. And you just keep pressing and stretching. Actually, it needs to be a little bit wider. It needs to go this way, because it needs to be as wide as the thickness of this, which is almost there. So let me just roll this way. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this into 3 pieces. The center piece I'm going to make into a tail. Yep, it's going to be right. I'm going to pull this in a little bit, just to give it that look. You can press this in a little bit if you want to make it look a little bit more like a tail. But that's going to be our tail. The other 2, I'm going to turn into fins. And I'm going to put one up here at the top. And the other one at the bottom. I'm just making them a little bit shorter here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a blade and sort of trim those off so that they look more like fins than a tail. Okay. We're getting to look a little bit more like a fish. All right, now we've got to do something about a head. So in the tutorial that I did for the tropical fish, I had made an eye. This is a little bit larger version. It's yellow and black. It's, all right, black wrapped in yellow. No, let's see how it is. Black wrapped in yellow, wrapped in black. And I've got some smaller versions of those, but I think I'm going to keep the big one. And I need to wrap this in some white. So let me, I didn't plan very well. I didn't condition enough white. So let me go condition some white, and then I will be back. Okay, sorry about that. I wasn't very prepared for this one. This is a Saturday afternoon, and I was in here cleaning my work surface and just got to thinking about this silly fish. So I kind of threw things together quickly, not realizing I was going to do a tutorial on it. But anyway, so I have rolled out some white, and this is on a number 3, I believe. And I'm going to wrap. It's yellow, it's black, wrapped in yellow, wrapped in black. And then I'm going to wrap it in white. And then I'm going to wrap it in another black. Let me get a better blade. Now this black and this white were rolled at a number 3. So I'm going to roll that white in the black. I really need to clean my work surface. I've got too many colors of clay showing up. So that's wrapped in black again. So this is what we have now. And I'm going to roll it in a number in clay that's rolled at a number 1, which is actually 0 is the thickest, but there's not that much difference between the 0 and the number 1, hardly any at all. So let me cut this. Make it meet here. And then I'm going to roll it in another layer of number 1. Because this is not only going to be his eyes, it's going to be his whole head. So I'm going to roll it in 2 layers of number 1. I didn't cut that very well. I didn't look to see where the mark was. Alright, so now we've got this. I'm going to compress it a little bit just to make sure all the air is out. But you don't want to make it much smaller. And let me bring my fish back over here. Let me cut the end off just because it's hard to see what colors are really there. There. So I'm going to put this up here. You can see it's a little tall, so let me cut the other end off. So they'll be the same thickness. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in this space and this space with white. Now my white isn't quite as soft as Monica's. I don't know what clay she uses, but her clay is always really nice and soft, so I know it's not Kato. So I'm just going to make a shape that will fit in here. I'm going to turn it so I can see what I'm doing and kind of wrap it a little bit and slice it off. Actually, I'm going to slice it to where it's more even with the body of the fish. See right here? I wanted this to be a little bit more even. And then I'm going to put some in up here at the top and do the same thing. Just kind of bend it a little bit. Let's see how much needs to go up here. I'll just press it and then I will just trim it a little bit. So now his head goes into his body. Of course, she didn't leave it like this, and I don't think I will either. I'm going to cut a little bit of a slice right here and open it up. and cut a little piece of black. And make this the same thickness. I'm going to stick this in here just so he'll have a little bit of a mouth. And you can slice that off. So there is basically our fish. Except now I want to take the black, and I'm going to go ahead and put this through the pasta machine again and do a very thin sheet of the black. Try to keep the white out of it if you can, where it's going to show anyway. You notice this is not a very clean piece of black, and it's okay. That little bit of white is not going to make any difference. So let me run it through at a number 1. And I'm going to roll it through at a number 3. I may even have to go one more setting down. I actually went 2 settings down. I went to a number 5. And just let me trim off these ragged ends. Actually, let me use a ruler. My ruler's not very clean either. Like I say, I really need to clean my work surface and my supplies. I've got little pieces of clay on everything. I'm just going to trim off this edge. And this is about 7/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to mark that, and I'll come in and mark and do this. Trim this off. And I hope that will be enough. I've got it longer. Maybe I ought to go ahead and trim the rest of it just in case I need it. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to trim, is it? Line it up and trim this right here. And I'll trim this off here where it's ragged. I don't know that I'll need it, but I just want it to be ready just in case. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here at 1. Well, it's still too wide, but that's all right. I'll trim it off. I'll start here at 1 fin. And I'm going to take a little paintbrush. It's got a small handle. And just let it, any place where you have, well, it shouldn't have any now that I've, well, there's some white there that I didn't fill in. Let me stick some clay down in there before this gets to be a problem. I didn't look on the back side when I was packing this. There. No one will ever know once this is all reduced. When you get to these fins, you might need to use your brush handle to get it down in that little groove. Go around your fins. And over to the tail. And again, up in these little grooves because you don't want to leave any spaces. And then we can trim it off where we meet the black. Now you can see this was a little bit too wide, so let me just go around. Of course, this is the back side. This is not the side that I was worrying about what it looked like. But this will make it a lot easier to reduce. There. So there is our fish. I'm just making sure this black is stuck all the way around. Just compress it a little bit. There's a little bit extra black here too. It won't hurt anything, except it will cover up what you're doing in when you're reducing this. So it's better to just take it out when you can. See how this folds over? And it's covering up the black. Like I said, we're going to slice it off anyway. But I'd like to be able to see what I'm doing. So then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take, I had some green and blue and white scrap clay. And I took this and I marbleized it and folded it and marbleized it and folded it and came up with this. I cut it in half and I rolled half of it out like this. We're going to make a bracelet. And this is going to be the base of our bracelet. So I'm not going to mess with this one, but I'm going to use this one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut pieces of this only because I like this part better than this part. But we're going to pack this cane. We're going to stick clay in wherever it needs to be. One would be on either side of this tail. And we're going to need to put some. Well, I didn't cut it wide enough, did I? I'm not thinking straight today. I guess it's the weekend doldrums. I need this to be a little bit thicker because I need it to be as tall as the cane. So let me put two of these back together and just squish them a little bit. There. So we're just going to stick this in here and cut it off. And I'll stick this end, make it a little bit smaller to fit in here. Let me put these two together. Doesn't really matter how they go together. Just trying to get the shapes to match. And I'm going to, actually what I can, okay, well, I don't know. I messed it up and I'm sorry. But you seem to like my mess ups because you get to see how I fix them. But I'm going to put some down here. And let me cut a big piece here. Going to put a big piece there. Ended up with 2 more pieces I can squeeze together. And what I'm going to do, I know you're thinking this looks terrible, but I'm going to trim this. I'm going to lay that up there. And I'm going to trim this. And put this along here. And I'm going to trim this. And probably cut it in half. Because we want to make sure all of this gets some kind of cover all the way around this fish. Don't worry about the shape yet. I'll cut this off and lay it around there. As long as there's blue all the way around. And again, compress it. What we need to do is try to get this into sort of a square cane. So we can trim some of this off. Be sure you use the right side of your blade. And put it in the places that you feel like you're going to need it. And we can trim some of this off because we don't need a lot. We just need a little bit all the way around our fish. I'll just stick that there. I'm going to cut most of it off again anyway. But see how I'm trying to square this up? You can set it up on end and press it. I don't think I need the paper anymore. And press it. And go to the other side and press it. And then we can cut off this excess here. Now we have a square cane that we can reduce. And you just reduce a square cane. You can do it several ways. I think this is going to be too big to use the square pairs. So you can take your roller, make sure it's clean. You can set it up on end and roll this way. Turn it over, roll that way. Set it up on end and roll that way. And you need to do this until it's big enough that you can grab it and start pulling it. If you have some large acrylic blocks, which I do happen to have, you can use them to push, turn it, and push. And you just have to keep turning and pushing. And it looks like my outside is reducing quicker than the inside, so it might be better at this point to let this rest because the green is softer than the fish, and we need to let it harden up and so that they're the same hardness before I go any further. So I'm going to stop the camera and I'll be back. I'll, wait maybe an hour, then I will come back. Okay, I'm back. I waited, probably about an hour and a half while I took care of some other household errands. And I think it's all the same temperature now, so we can start. I just wanted to flatten this out a little bit. But we can start reducing. Press in from the sides. You can use your roller. You can use an acrylic sheet. At this point, I prefer the acrylic sheet. And press down. And press down. And just keep flipping and turning and alternating the direction. And it will eventually start to get wider this way and smaller this way. See, it's already gotten wider. It's not quite wide enough for me to pull here yet. I can pull on the edges, but it won't take the sides, the fish in with it. So I'll just continue to do this. Let me pull a little bit. Just because the fish is beginning to roll over the edge. Excuse the ink on my fingers. I made a card while I was waiting. But it's really getting to a good point where I think I'm going to just use my hand. Because I think when you're pressing with an acrylic block, the clay is sticking to the acrylic, so it keeps it from spreading as much as it should. And with your hand, it won't do that. You can see that our fish is getting a little misshapen, and that's okay, because this is the outside. Remember, the outside of your cane isn't what it's going to look like on the inside. But now you can press with your fingers. You can do anything you really want to, and I'm just pressing to keep the edges even. These are not quite big enough, small enough yet to put the cane caps, the end caps on this. But it is getting longer to where you can start tugging a little. Now don't tug so hard that you split your clay. But you'll see that your clay starts to move after a while. And you'll feel that when it happens. But see, it's about twice the size, twice the thickness that it was. It's not quite small enough yet for me to do the tugging, because I need to be able to grab the inside also. And I'll just keep flattening a little bit as I go on the ends, just so that the fish doesn't get too far out of control. Okay, I'm going to try to attach these square end caps on here. It might be too late, but it's just now getting to the point where it's going to be small enough to use, and just start pressing on all four sides. Press in the middle a little bit. You know how when you do a round cane, you give it a waist? Well, I'm going to sort of do that in that I'm pushing from the sides, which is making it taller, and it does make this part of it get smaller. You see how wide it's gotten? Now it's probably at a point where I could start doing some tugging, but I think I'm going to go down a little bit further. Rolling. And we're just going to keep doing this until it gets small enough that we can put it, while I'm thinking about it, this is the rest of the scrap that I had, and I've rolled it out, and I'm going to run it through the pasta machine shortly. And then I'm going to make tiles out of it, and I want to cut these fish to go on the tiles. So that's how small I would like to get this. Before I go any further, I'm just a little curious as to what's going on in here. And one of them I'll just cut it in half. He's sort of a blunt-nosed fish, but he's not a bad-looking little fish. But he does need to get smaller, so I'm going to reduce these down. I'll turn the camera off so you don't have to watch me. But I'm going to reduce them down to two different sizes. I want one to be smaller than the other, so I will be back. Okay, I'm back, and this is 1/2 of the cane that I made into tiny little fish, and I couldn't stand it. I had to cut it to see my little fish. And this one I haven't cut yet, but I think it's about the same, but it's about twice the size as the little one, because I just want some variation. Let me cut the ends off. And this isn't very flat. I need to flatten it out a little bit. Now let me cut the end. And there's the other little fish. So I've got these two fish now that I can use on a bracelet. So what I thought I would do, I'm going to go ahead and make some tiles. I ran that strip that I had. This is supposed to look like water. Hope it does. And I'm going to cut it in half. And we will have to trim these edges. Again, I'm going to take a ruler. Just try to make sure it's straight. And trim off these ragged edges. Or you might like the ragged edges. Some people, I personally would like the ragged edges just because it gives it a more natural look. But not everybody thinks like I do. And let's see, about right there, I believe. We'll cut off all those ragged edges. And if it's not perfect, I'm not going to worry about it. Because this is supposed to be nature, right? and I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. Trying to cut off as little as I can because I don't want to make the tiles too small. And if you don't like the size of them, you can always trim them down later. And you decide which one you want for your top and which one you want for the bottom. That one's got a piece of black, so I think they'll put that on the inside of one. Alright, what I'm going to do, I'm going to butt these up together and slice my tiles so that I'll have them the same size. I'm not going to measure, I'm just going to estimate maybe an inch. I don't think I cut those. And I cut one of these a little bit wide. This one, I think I'm just going to trim just a little bit off of that one. And I can fix these edges when I do the next step. Now just remember to keep these paired up because they're going to be the same size. I'm just putting a little space between them so I can work with them a little bit easier. And I have these bead pins that I'm going to use. And they come with the, these come with a bead baking rack, but you can use anything. You can use, thin knitting needles, which I could do that and do them all at one time. I don't have enough for the whole thing, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use these bead pins, and I'll probably do 2 of each. Let me see, that I wanted that on the inside. I'll do 2 on each pin. So what I'm going to do is find a place where I would want the wire to go through, like maybe right there. And put the other one on top. Try to match up your sides and your end. You can trim your ends. You're not going to be able to trim your sides with the pin in there. Well, I need to do the other one too. Sorry, I'm not thinking far enough ahead. You need 2 pins. I think I wanted this side on the outside anyway. Then you match them up on either side as best as you can and press them down. Now I'm just going to do 2 just to show you, and I should have put these on a piece of paper. It's late in the day, it's a Saturday, and I'm really struggling to keep everything straight here. And then I'm gonna cut 2 slices of the little fish. And I'm gonna cut 1 slice of the big fish. I'm trying to get that back into shape. Although I don't want it too long because I want it to fit on this tile. And what I might do, because this one is a little bit long, I think I can get it on there like this. I'm going to put a big one on one and 2 little ones on the other. And I'll put this on an index card and bake it at 300 degrees. Do exactly the same thing for all of your other tiles. And then after they're baked, when they come out of the oven, you can take this, twist this, and pull it out, and then you can put beading wire in there. Now, if you want to use stretchy cord, you'll have to use something a little bit larger in diameter than these bead pins. And that is probably where these rods would come in handy. These are little stainless steel sock needles. And, you know, they would work. I've got some rods somewhere that are even longer. So if you wanted to use a stretchy cord, you would have to use something more like this. But this is how you make your little fish bracelet, and I just think he's adorable. If you can just imagine a bunch of these. Oops. You know, a bunch of these all strung together with maybe a lime green or a turquoise blue bead in between would make the cutest bracelet for summertime. And that's what I'm going to do. I don't know that I will do it this week, but I will eventually make me a bracelet out of this. And look how much I've got. I could probably make 3 or 4 bracelets. So make some for your friends. So I hope you enjoyed that. I did. I just love, like I said, I've got fish on the brain right now. So I will be back again soon with something else that we will, you know, depending on what's on my brain the next time. See you soon. Bye-bye.